Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Third India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable held in New Delhi. Ministers of both the nations interacted with India-Singapore business delegation. Ahead of Putin's summit in Alaska on Friday, US President Donald Trump to attend virtual meet with Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European leaders today. Gaza ceasefire talks in Cairo today on proposed 60-day truce. Netanyahu signals ceasefire talks moving towards full hostage release. An Indian Olympics Association formally approves country's bid to host 2030 Commonwealth Games during its special general meeting. Ahmedabad in spotlight as proposed host city. Well, the third India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable was held in New Delhi on Wednesday, marking a significant step in accelerating the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw represented India, while Singapore's delegation included Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan and others. Discussions at the roundtable focused on 6 pillars that talks about digitalization, skill development, sustainability, healthcare, connectivity and advanced manufacturing. During the discussion, the representatives of the two nations emphasized government-industry synergy. External Affairs Minister expressed delight at the commitment to deepen bilateral ties. European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy will hold online talks with US President Donald Trump on Wednesday, hoping to convince him to respect Kyiv's interests when he discusses the war with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived in Berlin on Wednesday to join the afternoon video conference with the host, Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Now, Merz has also invited the French, British and other European leaders and the heads of the European Union and NATO to take part in the talks. Merz's office said the conference call would discuss further options to exert pressure on Russia and preparation of possible peace negotiations and related issues of territorial claims and security. They are then expected to talk to Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in a second round of the conference call. The Trump-Putin meeting on Friday is so far planned to go ahead without Zelenskyy. This has fueled fears that Kyiv could be forced into painful concessions, including over land. Now, European Union leaders have stressed that the inherent right of Ukraine to choose its own destiny, adding that international borders must not be changed by force. Zelenskyy ruled out withdrawing troops from the Donbas region that Moscow claims. And for more on the meeting, let's cross to Thomas Sparrow, correspondent with our partner DW in Berlin. Good evening, Thomas. What does German Chancellor Merz want to achieve with this meeting?
Essentially, that Ukrainian and European interests are also discussed at that meeting in Alaska between US President Trump and Russian President Putin, because so far there are fears here in Germany, but also in other European countries, that those key interests from Ukraine and from Europe are not considered when it comes to finding a peace solution to the war in Ukraine. Specifically, part of the discussion is about when a ceasefire should be discussed, whether a ceasefire should be before any deal or whether a deal should be agreed on, which then leads to a ceasefire. The European perspective there is specifically that a ceasefire should be the precondition before any further discussions take place. A second element, you mentioned that in your introduction, is about possible territorial exchanges. That's something that has been discussed, but that is not something that Ukraine and Ukraine's European allies want to see at the moment. They want Ukraine to be able to determine its own destiny. You mentioned that as well. And specifically, they do not want borders to be changed by force because they sense that this could be a very dangerous precedent, namely that countries like Russia could invade neighbors and then change borders by force, which, according to European leaders, and they've stressed that time and time again, would be a violation of international law.
Also, how do European leaders view the planned Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska, Thomas?
They see it as something favorable, especially when it comes to Donald Trump's efforts to stop the war in Ukraine. So the fact that there are meetings is something that is seen positively from European capitals, but the content is controversial. The content of any potential agreement or any potential discussion that has to do with what I mentioned just now, the fact that European leaders and also Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy would obviously want to be at the table when important aspects of Ukraine's future are discussed, whether it is its territorial sovereignty, whether it is a possible ceasefire. Those are just two of the main topics at the table. From a European perspective, it's not only about discussing with Putin, it's also about making sure that Europeans' security interests and Ukrainians' security interests are very important placed at the table.
Also, what are the concerns of the European leader as Trump and Putin get ready for the meeting now?
Essentially, that a deal is achieved without the Europeans, or especially without including those important elements that we've been mentioning, whether it is that swap of territories between Russia and Ukraine without even asking Ukraine in the first place, or that a deal might be agreed without necessarily having a ceasefire in place beforehand. Or European leaders would also want to increase pressure on Russia, politically, economically, militarily, but that could be something that is not necessarily discussed in Alaska. So what all this tells us is that there are different views when it comes to how to put an end to the war in Ukraine, a war that has been going on now for over 3 years.
All right, Thomas Barrow, for joining us from Berlin and getting us a rounded perspective on this latest development. Now, as the presidents of US and Russia are meeting in Alaska on Friday, concerns are emerging over Ukraine being left out, where a possible deal may emerge to end the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has called this summit a personal victory for Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Zelenskyy has expressed concerns that Russia will put forward hardline demands and that Trump will hammer out a deal that will demand Ukraine cede swathes of territory. But Zelenskyy seems to be standing his ground for now. He also ruled out withdrawing troops from Ukraine's eastern Donbas region as part of a peace deal. Well, the Donbas encompasses the eastern Ukrainian regions of Lugansk and Donetsk, both of which Russia claims as its own and has sought to control since 2022. Zelenskyy also said he had received a signal from US envoy Steve Witkoff that Russia might agree to a ceasefire without elaborating. He also said Friday's summit would effectively postpone new US sanctions on Russia, sanctions that Trump had promised to impose if Putin refused to halt this conflict.
З Україною. Також сьогодні була доповідь розвідки і військового командування про те, на що розраховує Путін і до чого реально готується. Зокрема, це і приготування воєнні. Він точно не готується до припинення вогню і війни. Путін налаштований тільки на те, щоб подати зустріч з Америкою як свою особисту перемогу. І далі продовжувати діяти так, як і раніше. Тиснути на Україну так, як і раніше.
Now, in the first US-Russia summit since 2021, Putin and Trump will meet on Friday at Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska. Now, to prepare for the summit, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a call with US counterpart Marco Rubio, who told a US radio show earlier that Trump did not regard the meeting as a concession to Russia. The White House, meanwhile, confirmed that the meeting came about after Putin requested it, though Trump is open to a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelenskyy later. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the president wanted to size up Putin directly. Along those lines, Trump's administration tempered expectations for major progress towards a ceasefire, calling the summit a listening exercise.
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Meanwhile, Russian forces made their largest single-day advance in Ukraine in over a year, capturing 110 square kilometers primarily in the Donetsk region. This rapid push, the most significant since May 2024, comes just days before a summit between the United States, President Donald Trump, and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on the 15th of August. The advance near Dobripilya underscores Moscow's strategy to gain leverage in potential peace talks, which may involve territorial concessions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned that Russia's actions signal new offensives and not peace. European leaders, alarmed by the exclusion of Ukraine from the summit, fear pressure on Kyiv to cede the land. The escalation highlights the ongoing challenge of achieving a lasting ceasefire amid Russia's intensified military efforts. The European Union has escalated its support for Ukraine by approving a €35 billion plan funded by profits from frozen Russian assets as part of a G7 initiative to provide $50 billion in aid. The move is aimed at bolstering Ukraine's war-torn economy and defense that has drawn sharp criticisms from Moscow that labels it its economic aggression and theft. The Russian Foreign Ministry said on Wednesday that European Union's new tranche of financial aid to Ukraine from the income received from the frozen assets of the Bank of Russia is an escalation of economic aggression. Russia has warned of legal retaliation, claiming the use of its immobilized $300 billion in assets, mostly held in Europe, is illegal. The European Union insists the plan is legally sound, with funds to be repaid via interest from the frozen assets. Hungary's objections delayed the process, citing concerns over sanction stability. Now, this financial strategy underscores Europe's growing role in supporting Ukraine, especially as US aid wavers, but risks further straining European Union and Russia's relationship. Shifting focus, a Hamas delegation is in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, to discuss resuming Gaza ceasefire talks today with the goal of reaching a temporary 60-day truce agreement. Egypt, along with Qatar and the United States, has been trying to help Israel and Hamas reach peace. Despite efforts, no breakthrough has happened since a short-term truce earlier this year. The Hamas team, led by Chief Negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, were invited by Egypt to discuss the latest developments in ceasefire talks and prisoner exchanges. Cairo meetings will focus on ending hostilities and releasing prisoners. The discussions include a potential 60-day truce, followed by longer negotiations. They also aim to exchange all Israeli captives, both alive and deceased, in one deal. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has hinted at a shift in ceasefire negotiations, prioritizing a comprehensive deal to release all remaining hostages held by Hamas in one go rather than phased agreements. Now, this comes as Egypt and Qatar prepare a new framework for a lasting ceasefire, including Israeli troop withdrawal, according to Arab officials. Israel's threat to expand its offensive into Gaza's remaining areas, where 2 million residents seek refuge, has drawn global criticism and may aim to pressure Hamas. The group holds 50 hostages from the 7th of October attack in 2023, with Israel estimating 20 are alive. Egypt continues to push for a 60-day initial ceasefire to free some hostages and boost aid, hoping to pave the way for a permanent truce. Israel's coordinator of government activities in the territories, or COGAT, said nearly 320 trucks carrying humanitarian aid entered Gaza on Tuesday via the Kerem Shalom and Zikim crossings. The United Nations and other aid groups collected the shipments inside Gaza for distribution. COGAT also reported that 3 tankers of UN fuel entered the strip to power essential humanitarian systems and that it coordinated the rotation of aid workers in and out of Gaza. Meanwhile, a ceremony was held in Jakarta on Wednesday ahead of the departure of its military to drop aid into Gaza. 2 Hercules aircrafts departed on Wednesday with more than 800 tons of aid material that will be dropped through Jordan's Saju Air Base. The mission is being conducted on the directions of President Prabowo Subianto. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world in brief. A polished resort town famous for its ski lifts and hiking path has emerged as a popular destination for Arab tourists. As the fastest growing visitor group, Middle Eastern travelers now outnumber other tourists, prompting the local hospitality industry to adapt faster to their preferences. In Berlin, hundreds of people jumped into the Spree River for a swim in the middle of the capital against the long-standing blanket ban on swimming. Activists said they swam in the hope of ban lift, which has been there for around 100 years. Stargazers assembled at an observatory in Split, Croatia on Tuesday to observe the annual Perseid meteor shower. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the display was visible from the mountain where streaks of lights were seen above a monument tank commemorating the Bosnian War. The 2025 World Robot Conference concluded in Beijing on Tuesday, bringing together innovators and investors to explore real-world uses of robotics. From manufacturing and agriculture to home services, the event featured over 500 application scenarios, highlighting the scale and diversity of today's robotics ecosystem. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Chinese fighter intercepts Philippine plane over disputed Scarborough Shoal. And Typhoon Podul hits southern Taiwan, bringing heavy rains. Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Now, a Philippine plane was intercepted by Chinese fighter jet over the Scarborough Shoal days after two Chinese vessels blocked a Philippine ship on a supply mission. The said aircraft was carrying journalists while on a patrol flight. The incident is one of the latest between two countries over the disputed atoll. Despite a 2016 arbitration invalidating Chinese claim over the disputed atoll, China continues to maintain its presence through Coast Guard vessels and maritime militia. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will visit Japan on the 23rd and 24th of August for a summit with Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The leaders will focus on enhancing regional peace and strengthening trilateral cooperation with the United States, said spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung. Despite Lee's past criticism of Seoul-Tokyo rapprochement, he and Ishiba pledged to deepen ties at their first meeting during June's G7 in Canada. The summit occurs as both the nations address U.S. tariffs under President Donald Trump, with Lee set to meet Trump in the U.S. on the 25th of August. The talks aim to foster stability in Asia, reinforcing economic and security collaboration amid global uncertainties, including ongoing geopolitical developments, while navigating the complexities of historical and economic ties. A report by UN's Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar blames Myanmar's junta of torturous crimes since they took to power in 2021. The report released on Tuesday has accused Myanmar of systematic torture in its detention centers, including beatings, electric shocks, and sexual assault. The country has been ravaged by civil war since 2021, where the junta has cracked down brutally on the fighters of ethnic groups and others. More than 30,000 people have been arrested since then, says the report, claiming of serious abuses during interrogations and in detention facilities. The report also mentions of detaining children aged between 2 to 17 years on behalf of their parents as the true conclusions based on the testimonies of nearly 600 eyewitnesses. The report also mentions of some cases where executions of captives were carried out by the fighters as well, saying war crimes have been committed by both the sides during this whole time. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak jailed since August 2022 for his role in the multi-billion-dollar Malaysian Development Berhad scandal secured a significant legal victory on Wednesday. Malaysia's federal court unanimously dismissed an appeal by the Attorney General, allowing Najib to pursue a judicial review to confirm and execute a royal order allegedly issued by former King Al Sultan Abdullah. While the court acknowledged the document's existence, it could not verify its authenticity, referring the case to a lower tribunal for further review on the 18th of August. The decision has sparked controversy, with government authorities denying knowledge of the order despite confirmation from the former king's office, raising questions about transparency and political motives. Moving on. As Typhoon Podul hit Taiwan's southeast coast on Wednesday, large-scale damage was witnessed on the island nation. Shop fronts were damaged along with disruption in daily routine, while another video caught solar panel being blown away from a rooftop due to the strong winds. School and work were suspended by the government across 9 cities and countries, including the southern metropolises of Kaohsiung and Tainan. Though capital Taipei witnessed heavy winds, no significant damage was noticed so far. The typhoon hit the island nation's southwest coast during the day, with gusty winds of up to 191 kilometers per hour. High waves could be seen rising from the shores as strong winds accompanied by heavy downpour diminished the visibility. The impact also downed power lines at many places as well. Large number of flights were cancelled along with ferry services. More than 5,500 people were evacuated from their homes and brought to safer locations as authorities prepare to assess the impact. Wildfires have been wreaking havoc as a brutal heat wave continues to creep across Europe and Canada. Our next report gets you more details. Take a look.
Wildfires raged in parts of Europe as millions across the continent face the harsh new reality of record-breaking summer temperatures. In southern Europe, 3 men lost their lives and thousands were forced to evacuate their homes as wildfires intensified. Heat alerts were issued in Italy, France, Spain, Portugal and the Balkans, with temperatures expected to exceed 40 degrees Celsius. As per the Weather Agency of France, temperatures around 41 degrees Celsius will prevail in the areas under highest alert for heat on Wednesday. Meanwhile, a wildfire in Spain's Chandresia de Queixia continued to burn, destroying nearly 3,500 hectares. In Spain, the Met Department stated that temperatures were set to reach 44 degrees Celsius in some regions. Firefighters in southern Albanian town of Delvina are also battling wildfires that have encircled the city. Extra firefighters and army personnel joined efforts to control the blaze, prompting precautionary evacuations. In Greece, a wildfire raged across hills close to a residential area on the island of Zakynthos. In Turkey, firefighters battle to contain a raging blaze as thick clouds of smoke and flames engulfed a wooded area in the western province of Izmir. Elsewhere, crew managed to contain several wildfires burning across the country. Montenegro's beach town of Bilarica also faced a wildfire, with thick smoke rising above the town. Authorities across Europe have issued various heat warnings as climate change intensifies the severity of wildfires. In another continent, firefighters battled a wildfire on the outskirts of Halifax, Nova Scotia, as heat wave grips the nation in Canada, with some local businesses evacuated. Kajal's report for DD India.
Kuwait has introduced a visa on arrival facility for all the residents holding valid residency permits in Gulf Cooperation Council countries, including the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain and Oman. Effective immediately, expatriates can obtain a 1-month tourist visa upon arrival at Kuwait International Airport or other entry points, provided their GCC residence permit is valid for at least 6 months. Aiming to boost regional connectivity, the move is expected to benefit significantly to the Indians living in the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia. The policy comes ahead of the trial launch of the GCC Unified Travel Visa later in 2025. While details of the Unified Visa are yet to be finalized, it is expected to ease travel rules across the region and promote tourism between member states. And now it's time to get you the latest from the world of sports. India's sporting ambitions are reaching new heights as the Indian Olympics Association has officially approved the country's bid to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games, with Ahmedabad in the spotlight as the proposed city. With Canada stepping out of the race, India's chances are looking brighter than ever. The final bid will be submitted by the 31st of August and the host nation will be announced in November at the Commonwealth Sport General Assembly in Glasgow. India has earlier hosted the 2010 Commonwealth Games in New Delhi.
We are all working very hard, and first goal is to get the 2030 Commonwealth Games into India, followed by Youth Summer Olympics, then followed by the 2036 Olympics. So everything is on track. We're all working hard towards that goal. I think it's a necessity at this time, and I think it's come at the right time, especially when we're bidding for these big events coming into India. I think it'll be a game changer going forward for the sports promotion and sports development for the country.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. Download the QR code right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.